Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Boot Nerds podcast. Jay, what's going on?
Jefferson, what's up, my man? 21 episodes. And let's cut right to the chase because today we have a rather special episode. I'm looking forward to it at least. We're going to talk about what I think we both agree on is one of the most impressive leather boots to come out in the last, many years. And that is kind of the lead into telling another exciting tale of our journey, our trip to Japan. So that's going to be up in this episode. We're also going to talk some other new releases. There's going to be a new PUMA King, the new Champions League ball. It's all going to be very exciting. And if you want any of the new stuff, like the new Mizuno Rebula 3 made in Japan, the PUMA King, or the Champions League ball, of course, you can buy everything if you click the link in the description or on your screen right now from unisportstore.com. Shameless plug over. But Josh, the Rebula 3 is the main topic of today.
It is.
We both have it right here.
Yes. But before we continue, we should mention that if you have a question that you'd like us to answer in the next episode of the Boot Nerds podcast, please leave your questions down below in the comments. And also, guys, it would help us out tremendously if you could leave a like on this episode. It just helps. Thanks.
It just helps. Thank you so much. And of course, don't forget that if you like what we do and you think we should be spread out to more people so more people can enjoy talking about boots all the time, tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your cousin to go subscribe to the Boot Nerds podcast and get the weekly podcast both on YouTube here or audio only, so you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or whatever they're called these days. You can find the links to those in the description as well. But I guess with that out of the way, let's get back to the boots.
Cool.
So the Rebula 3 here comes off of obviously the Mizuno Rebula 1 and 2, but this is really the a big leap for Mizuno in terms of how the Rebula feels and performs, because the first Rebula was rather good. The second Rebula was, in my opinion, a little bit it wasn't my favorite. But this one has really taken everything that was good about those two boots and combined them into a boot I really can't fault for anything.
Yeah, it's one of those boots that's hard to criticize. I think the criticism on the first two variations of Rebula is that the shape was maybe a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It's not to say that they fit poorly, but they didn't fit as well as other Mizuno boots, certainly the Morelia Neo 2. And it almost seems like they were going for a really tight fit with the first two Rebulas. So they fixed the shape. That's first and foremost. And then I would say the sole plate and the stud pattern, while not bad on the first two Rebulas, it was certainly nothing extraordinary. And they've definitely improved that with this new Rebula 3 to the point where I think that this is one of the best sole plates and stud patterns on the market right now. And I wasn't expecting that going into it. When I saw it, I'm like, oh, that looks better. But I didn't expect it to feel and perform as good as it actually does.
I'm fully with you. I think one of the places where Mizuno has kind of been, not leading the market these past years has been the outsole, the stud pattern. Simply because they keep it, in my opinion, a little bit too simple sometimes. They have their conical studs. They have their, 4 studs on the outside. And they really never, they stick to that, right? So I've always been a little hesitant on being excited about Mizuno bringing out a new outsole, because I'm just thinking, okay, it can only be more of the same-ish. They can work with the stiffness of the materials in the forefoot and the midfoot, and they have done that, but they've actually made this work. So you get the flexibility in the forefoot, you get the stiffness and the stability in the midfoot, and somehow the studs have been made a little bit smaller so they don't feel as clumsy as they had a tendency to do on the previous Rebulas. So very, very comfortable, very nice to maneuver with, and it never really feels like it slows you down or hinders you in your movement. It basically just supports your foot and lets it bend freely and nicely, however, whenever you need it to. So very, very good outsole, I think.
No, I think you said it. You said it doesn't hinder your movement, which I think is the big thing with this, because this deflex groove is something they've had within the brand for a little while now. And when you do a sole plate, you definitely want stiffness in the heel and you definitely want stiffness through the midfoot. But I find that with a lot, I would say most football boots, you end up with stiffness all the way through. So it doesn't really allow for that kind of twist through the midfoot, which inevitably your foot does make that movement pretty much when you're running and changing direction. And this just moves so closely with your foot that I think does make the stud pattern work a lot better. Because if the boot is able to move with your foot, you're kind of getting maximum contact with the studs on the ground, which in turn will lead to better traction, where maybe something like a mercurial sole plate, as an example, that's a lot stiffer pretty much all the way through. There's a certain feel that comes with that you could argue is very positive. A lot of people really like that. I know you're one of those people, but just the natural sensation of having the boot move so closely underneath your foot is something that the Rebula 3, I think, does better than pretty much any other boot on the market right now.
And this is the thing, you never really feel that there is a plastic plate underneath your foot. On the Mercurial, you feel the responsiveness, you feel the snapback you get when you extend your foot again. You really feel a release of energy, and you don't do that in the same way here, because it simply just feels like it's so smooth underneath your foot, if you know what I mean. It's never really in the way, and it doesn't feel like it's hindering the natural movement of your foot. So it's a different sensation, but a very, very comfortable sensation, I would say. And then, of course, you get your stiffness that you want under the midfoot to feel stable and secure. So that's really nice. So obviously, the outsole is perhaps the biggest, should we say, change, one of the biggest improvements. But what's most impressive for me is actually the leather upper, because it's more of the same. It's still a really, really high quality Kangaroo leather upper, one piece, no stitches, no nothing whatsoever, basically, except for this CT frame, basically a skeleton of memory foam that they've put on the inside of the leather to help it give it some shape and some structure, but keep it completely seam and stitch free, so it can be as soft and pliable as possible and mold to your foot extremely well. And I've worn this, should we say, 5 hours total now, and this leather is already so ridiculously soft that I find it hard to believe. One of the most comfortable leather uppers I have probably ever tried in my life, and ever will try, because I struggle to think how this can be softer, faster, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the elimination of any kind of stitching really, I guess it gets rid of any kind of hard spots. And I feel like it has been thinned out ever so slightly, the leather itself, in comparison to the past couple Rebulas, which is good. But the memory foam in combination with the leather, it just works really, really well. The touch, a lot of people have been asking me how the Rebula 3 compares to the Wave Cup Legend. And
same.
The Wave Cup Legend is certainly a lot more traditional, more of a, I guess, classic padded feel to the leather, where this feels more, it's not quite Morelia Neo thin, let's say that much, but there's definitely a padded sensation to it. And when you look at it visually, the concept is very similar to what you find with the internal support cage that we have on the Tiempo Legend 7 Elite right now. But it just feels more natural. It doesn't have, it's special. It has that classic, super soft, ultra premium leather sensation that you're looking for, where with the Tiempo Legend 7 Elite, yes, it's soft, yes, the touch is good, but you kind of feel all the different layers. You don't get that sensation with this boot.
Exactly. And the good thing about the CT frame is that it's also built so it moves with your foot. You never feel there's some sort of like rigid structure around your foot. And to dive deeper into the whole Wave Cup Legend versus Rebula discussion, I've also had a ton of questions, because I said on Instagram that this was one of the most comfortable boots I've ever tried. And previously that would have been something I would say about the Wave Cup Legends and the Copa 19 Plus. But for me, because the Wave Cup Legends has stitches, it means that the leather in some places is a little bit harder, it's a little bit more compressed, which means that it can't be as soft and pliable and mold as nicely around my foot. Whereas this just does it immediately, instantaneously, just sits completely tight around my foot. It basically like you've stuck your boot, your foot in the boot, and then put it in some sort of heater to make the leather just mold instantly to the foot. It's like that, and so where the Wave Cup Legend is a little more, I would say, also because the cut of the boot, the toe box is a little more low profile. It feels like an interesting combination. It's a very tight fit, but you also feel the pillow-like paddedness on the ball compared to this, which has, I would say, a slightly more sharp sensation, but with that little twist of softness, if you know what I mean. You feel there's the foam, but also somehow feel a little closer to the ball in some weird way. It's not as
No, I know what you're saying. It feels thinner on the ball than it does when you're holding it in your hands.
Exactly, yeah. And with the Wave Cup Legend, it's also, obviously, the leather upper is very thin, but you do feel that there's a different sort of more classic foam package on the inside of the leather, which means a slightly more, I wouldn't say it's not less responsive, but it just feels a little, it feels a little more distant from your foot than this guy does for some weird reason.
Yeah. No, they did a good job. So I guess to summarize the leather, it's good. It's very good.
Oh, it's the best.
It's arguably the best. They changed the shape of the boot, which I think improves the fit drastically. I love the way they did the tongue. It's like an internal one-piece structure at the bottom part of the lacing system, and then it opens up nicely at the top with these extra kind of like little fin wing things that go down the side of your foot. And it really makes for a nice wrap across the top of your foot, which can typically be an issue with boots with a one-piece upper where it just doesn't match your foot quite properly and you end up with kind of bunching of material. You don't get that at all. And the fact that it is attached on the lower portion means that it doesn't slide from side to side, which is great. And the new material they're using through the midfoot and heel area along with the tongue is just, it works. It's thin, it's light, it's got good structure to it. It maintains the shape and responsiveness through the midfoot. And I think it looks pretty cool as well.
Oh, I totally agree. And the good thing about the tongue here is that it gives you the sensation of a burrito style wrapping tongue that goes all the way around your foot and gives this one-to-one feel with the boot, but without the, all the annoying stuff that you get with that sort of construction. It's much more free. It's much more adaptive to me, which makes it feel a whole lot better. So it basically mixes the best of those two worlds because it has those wings and it's still attached to the boot in this really classic way. So I enjoy the tongue a lot. And also the new heel construction here. As you can see, it's been made a little bit higher. It's been made a little bit, the top part of the heel has been made a little bit slimmer. So it's not just this completely rounded flat heel that gave a lot of people, myself included, some rather big issues with blisters at some points. I'm not alone. I don't know if it happened to you on the Rebula 2.
It was, yeah, there was like, it almost seemed like when you put that boot on, all the padding that seemed like it was really nice would kind of compress into nothing. And you just end up, it just had a little bit of a rawness sensation to the heel, where this has less padding. I would say half the padding of what you had in previous Rebulas, but because they have, I guess, contoured the shape of the boot so nicely, it really grabs your heel and there's really no issues with discomfort at all.
And that's actually very impressive. I brought the Rebula 2s here just so you can see that the Rebula 3 is just a tad bit higher and a little more sculpted to actually match the shape of a typical human heel. So it fits that much better, and they don't have to compensate by slapping in a load of foam because they messed up the shape of the heel to wrap the heel tight enough, which means that there are fewer pressure points on the new heel to make it more comfortable and feel like it's made to move with your foot instead of just holding it in place involuntarily.
Awesome. Mizuno, if you're watching, you can totally use this if you want for your marketing. The Rebula 3 made for humans. You're free to use that.
Yeah, JayMike 2019. Great quote.
Oh, it's awesome. I've been thinking about this a lot, and to me, the Rebula 3 is kind of like, It's got a little bit of a Wave Ignitus vibe, but without all the bulkiness. And these also remind me a lot. And I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, but the combination of the Kangaroo leather and the memory foam, very supersonic Wave.
Yes. Extremely. I'm actually thinking more supersonic Wave than the Wave Ignitus, simply because of how it feels, and also, of course, with the looks, Bazzara 101. But without the the Bazzara 101 leather was very bulky and didn't look. It looked like a leather sausage. It didn't look good. And this has the the sleek sculpted shape that I think looks amazing. And then, as you say, the Wave Supersonic was it definitely brings back the memories of that boot. And I can understand where you're coming from with the Wave Ignitus, and maybe this is where they should have started, seeing that the Rebula is supposed to take over from the Wave Ignitus. But given that, though, you love the Wave Ignitus 2s a lot, right? How do you feel about these?
I like them. I mean, I'd love to see some Wave Ignitus elements on a base platform like this. I think that would be really cool, because this does have kind of a power boot vibe to it, in my opinion, even though it really is, I would say, more speed boot than power boot in regards to how it feels.
Absolutely, but this is also because it's so light. And for those of you who haven't noticed yet, there are also these, the whole cut of the leather around the lacing system. And you pointed this out in the Unisport playtest, that it's actually shaped now like the lacing system, or the lacing area of the Morelia Neo 2, which means that now the lacing system, or the leather, it basically wraps the foot a little higher. So this means that when you pull the laces tight, the upper wraps your foot a little higher as well and holds it down, meaning you get slightly more of a locked-in fit. I just compared it to the Rebula 2s, and these definitely felt a little more secure on top of the foot as well. So really liking that, and it just looks hella cool too.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's one of those boots that, you, like you said at the start of this, it's hard to criticize. There's not too much you can pick apart with it,
except for the price. But it's all right, because this is one of those boots that I'm gonna put my head out there and just say that no matter what you like in football boots, this is gonna appeal to you, because it has a little bit of everything, and it's just so ridiculously comfortable that I don't believe anyone would dislike this boot. And also, the Rebula has given they've given Nike a massive problem, because they've done what Nike have done with the Tiempo Legend 7, and they've just basically made a boot that's a million times better.
Mm-hmm. Can I clarify? Because I put that in my review. I think I titled it something along the lines of "Nike is in trouble," and
yes,
a lot of people took that as like, oh, Mizuno. I think that Mizuno is going to take over the market and beat Nike.
No.
Clearly not what I meant, and I don't think that's happening. As much as I'd like to see that happen, because that would be cool, just to see someone else be the top dog for a little bit. Obviously, that's not going to happen. What I meant with that statement, and I think what you meant with what you just said, is that if we're comparing apples to apples here, which the Rebula 3 and the Tiempo Legend 7, the Rebula is clearly beating it out. So what I meant by that is the Tiempo Legend 8 better be pretty special to beat out the Rebula 3, because that is when you're talking about the concept of a modern Kangaroo leather football boot that's lightweight with aggressive traction, good responsiveness, all the elements that are expected from a modern football boot, but still giving you the softness of classic leather. The Rebula 3 does that the best of any boot on the market right now.
I totally agree. And no matter if the Tiempo Legend 8 sucks, I mean, we don't know yet, but even if it would suck, Nike would still have higher sales numbers than Mizuno. But it's also more about, the whole brand identity. Of course, Nike want to be the ones who have the most innovative modern leather boot out there, and obviously the best. But unless they really pull a rabbit out of the hat, they won't, because it's going to be extremely hard to beat the Rebula 3.
Yeah.
So that for me is a little bit, it's they're not going to fall behind Mizuno. Mizuno isn't going to take over in any way, but it's still going to be interesting to see how people react to the should we say, the prospect of Nike not having the best modern leather boot out there. We've seen them being beat by the Copa 19 Plus. And now Mizuno Rebula 3 is also kicking their asses. Like, what's the response going to be here? And are they able to at least get up to second place with the Legend 8? That's going to be really, really fun to follow and see how that unfolds. Because in my opinion, right now, they're number 3.
If you're talking about
modern leather boots.
I wouldn't say they're number 3 in regards to the outright performance of the boot. But when you're talking about what makes a leather boot special, yeah, definitely third place.
Who would you have, like, when we talk performance? Who would you say?
Jay, I still think from a pure performance perspective, while the Tiempo is probably not as comfortable, it is more responsive, I think, than
the Copa.
For sure the Copa. But arguably the Rebula as well. I think the Flywire and the Flyknit and the way that boot is designed, even the added liner they have, what do they call it? The fit mesh liner in the forefoot, which I don't really care for, but it does make the upper more structurally sound. But it takes away, again, you feel all of those layers when it comes to touch on the ball. So it depends on what you value. I would rather have the softer, more natural, just better overall sensation of the Rebula over the Tiempo. But when you're talking about, like, I don't want to say measurable figures, but just in terms of outright responsiveness, the amount of stretch to the upper when you're making a hard cut, there's less stretch to the Tiempo than there is to the Rebula and certainly the Copa.
Definitely agree. Yes. But for me, if you want responsiveness, it's one of those areas that I don't personally look at that much when I try to, value or score modern leather boots, compare them to each other. Because if I want a responsive boot, I'm going to go something else than modern leather boots. But you're right in the sense that, yes, for responsiveness, the Legend is definitely number 1. But that's just not one of the areas where I personally, that's not what I'm looking for in one of those boots.
And I guess that might be the criticism of Nike right now, is that they're making arguably the best football boots on paper. When you're talking about objective technical specifications, they make some really, really impressive stuff. But where they are lacking with certain models is the subjective, the part that's the feel aspect, the part that you don't really know about until you've tried the boots yourself. And I think if you've tried the Rebula and you've tried the Tiempo, there's absolutely no way that you would think that the Tiempo offers a better, nicer touch on the ball.
Or comfort for that matter, in general fit. And, when you have a modern leather boot, and this is a completely different discussion, I know, but when you have a modern leather boot, for me, and this is just my personal opinion, right? But for me, it should give you a wow experience when you put it on. Like, either the fit should be next level, the touch should be really good, and it should overall just feel elegant. And if it doesn't give you said wow experience, for me, it's failing a little bit as a modern leather boot, because everything else, responsiveness, lightweight, a very close touch on the ball, all that stuff, you can get those sensations in other boots. So this is the USP of the modern leather boot, right? So if the Legend, for me, doesn't do that as well as the Copa 19 Plus, we can always discuss that later, but especially compared to the Rebula 3, it doesn't give you the same wow effect when you put it on, as in, this is seriously next level. This is something else that I won't get in any other boot. For me, that's a problem that Nike really need to address to make sure that their modern leather boot offering stands out from all their other boots. Because right now they're all just, lightweight. They have a pretty sharp touch in the ball. They're all relatively responsive, and they have a knitted sock collar. No,
you're right. That's the issue with modern football boots in general. Is they have, while they are different in a lot of ways, they all feature a lot of similar elements. And when you're talking about the Nike brand, it's all Flyknit, it's all Flywire, it's all the same combination of features. So when you have a leather boot like the Tiempo, the leather needs to be the star, and it's not.
Yes.
It's almost not. Where with Mizuno, they've really, I think, prioritized the feel of the leather over everything else, but have also managed to do everything else quite well at the same time. So,
agreed. And the only issue with this is that it's so flipping expensive. But on the other hand, I was actually asked a question by a colleague the other day. Would I take this, or would I take a 200 € PUMA boot, which is also quite decent, and we're going to talk about it in a second. But would I take this, or would I take the 200 euro Puma boot? And I said I would take the Rebula. Pay the extra money because I also know this is going to last me forever if I treat it right because it's such high quality.
Yeah. Honestly, I think if you're a fan of leather boots, paying the extra money for a Mizuno is the way to go. And if you're a human.
If you're human, especially if you're human, it works best that way. but speaking of this other 200 euro leather Puma boot that I mentioned, Puma also just actually today, at least European time, if you're watching this, Puma just brought out the PUMA King Platinum, which is like bringing back the King to the modern game. It's been gone for a while. I think the last King was the PUMA King Finale.
No.
I'm not mistaken?
No, it was the Puma. No, because that naming, I think we talked about the naming structure. Complete disaster. I think it was the PUMA King 2 at the last one. Because there was Finale.
Oh,
then they did Puma
yeah.
King. Then they just relaunched
yeah.
it as Puma King.
True,
and then they did Puma King 2, which I think was like that like slate blue color. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I actually forgot about that. Because that wasn't very. Anyway, now it's back. And they've actually made it as their other boots a 200 euro offering with basically no bullshit. It is just a very no nonsense boot. K-leather upper, extremely thin. As you can see, I've worn this for 2 hours. And it's already very, very soft. It's not Mizuno plush and nice and that, you know, it doesn't have the same leather love, rich, full sensation, but it's a very soft upper and molds to the foot extremely well. No stitches on the forefoot, Evo knit tongue construction, and a relatively, should we say, secure feeling heel. Rapid sprint outsole from the one, and it's basically there to take over from the low cut Puma 1. 19.1 cc it's called these days, naming and all. But it's a nice offering, I feel. And while it's a little more expensive than the low cut Puma 1, it definitely also feels decent. Again, one of those boots that for the money, there's not much to complain about. It's just a decent leather boot. Kind of like Puma's Nike Premier, only a little bit more premium.
Yeah, no, I haven't tried them yet. I don't know too much about them at this point, but I like the look. I like the idea of doing a knitted tongue. I think the rapid sprint outsole and stud pattern is really solid. I was a fan of the Puma 1 low, so I'm excited to give them a go.
And it's not gonna beat the Rebula for, you know, modern leather boot qualities. But then again, it's not ridiculously expensive either. So if you just want a solidly put together, comfortable, no nonsense boot that feels relatively sharp on the ball and doesn't weigh a ton, I think this weighs 185 grams. So it's actually in like Morelia Neo 2 territory. It's 200 euros. There's no crap. It's just one of those boots that's just a nice pickup.
Good. Awesome.
Sweet.
Hey, let's not talk about the ball because
there's a new ball.
I think we should do an episode and let us know down below in the comments if you think this is a good idea. Maybe just discussing the evolution of match balls in general and if what they're doing is a good idea, because they've taken the Champions League ball that has had an iconic design and a similar design for years, and they've slightly modified it for the sake of making it slightly different and
AKA
maybe not necessarily better.
Did.
I feel like that ball, if you're like one of those people that's like obsessed with things being perfect, would drive you nuts just because the stars don't line up anymore.
But there's a very good reason for that, actually, because they wanted to make the stars bigger. And the only way they could that is to, you know, have them overlap. I think it looks quite cool. And the only thing I want to mention about this ball is that Adidas actually managed to fix it so it's not completely dead slippery anymore, so you can actually do stuff with it again.
That's good.
Let's talk about it later.
Does it have ACC?
I'm pretty sure this does not have ACC, and I think if we suggest it does, Adi are going to sue the life out of us, so let's just leave it at that.
All right.
But since it doesn't have ACC, it's no good, right?
It might be there. You just can't see it.
It might be. You never know. You never know. Should we move on to some questions then, Josh?
We could. Do you want to talk a little? We did say that we would talk about Japan a little bit.
Oh, wow. So Japan,
yeah, we should probably mention that. So
yeah. Go ahead.
We went to Japan with Mizuno to try out the Rebula 3 a little bit early so we could have some content ready for you guys at launch. And we tried out some other stuff that we cannot talk about as of yet, but there is more content coming soon. And honestly, I'm pretty excited to talk about one boot in particular from Mizuno.
I know which one, yeah.
I would say in general, watch out for Mizuno as a brand because between the Rebula, the Neo line, and the Morelia line, they're going to have 3 models that are very difficult to criticize.
Yeah, and the only reason I see them not being at least Puma level right now is their marketing, because the product offering is probably, in my opinion, the strongest out there. It's and what they have coming up is very, very exciting. It's very high quality, but it also manages to enter the arena of, really, dare I say, sexy looking football boots that also appeals to the mass market and not just us leather boot nerds that really appreciate the craft that Mizuno put into their boots. So very, very strong and good to come over there and talk to some of the people behind the brands, try out the boots, get the content done. And obviously Japan is a fantastic country. Great people, fantastic food as you experienced. Just a really, really interesting thing to come over there, see how the people work, talk to some of the guys who actually have their hands on making the boots and giving feedback, hearing why they did what they did and giving suggestions, all that stuff. It's great.
It was very cool to see how genuinely interested they are in the technicalities of the product. I feel like with some of the big brands, and maybe this shouldn't be the case, that they make certain decisions, certain design elements are almost just there for the sake of being there, where with Mizuno, I really got this vibe where every little detail on the boot was like an entire meeting over the course of several weeks for that to pass and get approved. And obviously, you're still going to come out with products that are going to have their flaws. I mean, the Rebula 1 and 2, we've just talked about, we weren't huge fans of, but there's definitely this very clear direction where they're trying to make the best possible products, but at the same time, really stay true to what they realize is their kind of hardcore customer group, because Mizuno is kind of the last holdout for the style of football boot that they make. They're not doing the sock boot thing like everyone else.
And I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that they will one day, because they're also looking to more and more build innovation and modern technologies into their boots, combine their heritage, leather craftsmanship with what is in today to obviously also appeal to the bigger market. So I also look forward to seeing them really transition with all their boots into this realm, not only with the Rebula, but also potentially with the Morelia Neo. And who knows what else will be out there. Cheeky re-release of the Wave Cup Legend as like an inline boot with some modern twist. I don't know, but there's definitely, they have so much exciting technology and running and handball and all that stuff that I know they want to include into football and make it work. But that's the other thing. You also realize that these people, they try to compromise as little as possible. This means that, as you talk about, obsessing over the smallest details. I mean, they're Japanese, for fuck. They obsess about stuff, and that's what makes it so good, because they don't do stuff unless they're convinced that it's actually the best way of doing things right now, for the performance, for the fit, and for the the Mizuno identity. So it's really fun to meet those people.
Yeah, they're not a brand that likes to experiment on the public like some brands.
No, except for when they do heels that are clearly made for, well, not humans.
Not humans.
Rebula.
Yes, we've gone over this. Yeah. Rebula 3 made for humans.
Yeah.
Get it now.
That's how it goes. But that was Japan. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff coming on the Unisport channel. There's a lot of stuff coming on your channel. You're going to be on the Unisport channel for a lot of the stuff. So it's going to be the ultimate crossover. So every other brand out there, take notice.
I guess I've had a lot of questions asking about like vlogs, if I like vlogged anything. And we really worked
24/7.
I would say Yeah, pretty much like 90% of the trip. We didn't really have, I guess most of the free time we had was once we were pretty much exhausted and barely able to stand anymore.
Yeah. We ate some meat. We ate some meat and the meat was good.
We ate some food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The food was very good.
Not a good vlog trip, I would say. So don't expect any vlog footage if that's what you're expecting, but definitely some interesting content is coming down the pipeline. And also, if you're, I just want to throw this out there as some advice to anyone who may want to visit Japan. Just realize that the flight is way longer than you think it is.
Yes.
It's long. Jay, I'm not good at sitting still for a long time. And the 14-hour flight there, wow. That was hard.
I just watched a lot of movies. That was cool. Oh. I mean, you're tired, but I was cool. It's okay.
It was hard.
Yeah, but
I was three movies back to back to back, and I'm looking at the flight thing, and it's not even a quarter of the way done. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But I also fly way too much, so I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah, you're a pro. I'm not a pro.
It's the life we chose, man. That's how.
Not a pro. Want to hear a funny story about
Hit me up with a funny story before the questions.
My ankle on the way back, because I think it's funny. I'm actually a little disappointed I didn't take any pictures, but I was kind of freaking out. So on the last day, I got to the airport and I'm sitting there in the airport eating my ice cream. And my ice cream. So I'm eating my ice cream.
Tell me this before.
Oh yeah, the ice cream. I left out that detail. It was really good, by the way. So I'm eating my ice cream and I'm kind of like, man, my left ankle kind of hurts a little bit. So I look down, and sure enough, it's extremely red, and it's probably double the size it normally is. It's really starting to swell, and I'm kind of getting worried. But it's pretty normal during flights for my ankles to swell a little bit. It's not an abnormal thing in general for humans. So anyways, I was kind of concerned because I hadn't even gotten on the plane yet and it was already swelling up and it was very red and it was kind of warm. So I'm looking up on Google basically anything that I possibly could be on my phone. And whenever you do that, it's never good because you always find some kind of life-threatening.
You have cancer and you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah, one of those, right? So I thought, oh man, do I have like a blood clot? Because that's really bad. What should I do? Should I ask for help? Oh, I can't ask for help. Everyone speaks Japanese, so I can't do that. So, so I just get on the plane and I'm like, okay, whatever. It's gonna be fine. By the time I land, my ankle's 4 times the size it normally.
So it wasn't fine.
No, it looked like I had broken my ankle and it was all stiff and it killed. So I limp off the plane and I'm waiting for my luggage and my luggage is not showing up. It's been an hour. Apparently it's storming outside and they can't move the luggage from the plane. So an hour goes by. They finally move the luggage, starts coming out and my luggage is not there. So I can barely stand. I'm waiting for my luggage for an hour and there's nowhere to sit in the Toronto airport for some reason. So it's killing me. You can tell everyone's looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy's ankle? Doesn't come out. Hour and a half goes by. Everyone's got their luggage and mine's not there. So it turns out my luggage did not make it for some reason. I didn't find out until an hour and a half later. So then finally I get out and my ankle is it's killing me. I can barely walk. I get home and I elevate it because I think that's what's the thing to do. And it's a Saturday, so I can't get to the doctor until Monday. Luckily, the next day the swelling goes down a lot and I finally go to the doctor. And the doctor's theory, because I thought maybe I got bit by a bug or maybe I did have a blood clot or something like that. But it turns out that I blew a blood vessel in my ankle. At least this is the theory of the doctor. And then when I went in the plane, the altitude kind of rushed all the blood to that area, causing my ankle to swell tremendously, more so than I think. Like I've really severely injured my ankle one time and it didn't swell that much. Okay. So the fact that it was like a giant red and purple bruise. It was terrible.
Why didn't you take photos, bro?
Because I don't know. I just didn't do it. I don't know. It's a great question. But about 4 days later, it got back to normal size and I'm good. So.
Right.
There will be more episodes of the Boot Nerds podcast.
So a lot of drama for nothing.
A lot of drama for nothing.
Yeah. Was it a good ice cream?
Great ice cream. Jay, if my ankle didn't hurt so bad, I would have went back and got another one. But it was a long walk to get to the ice cream place. So I was
But that's the thing. Everything's just better in Japan. Even the ice cream's better. It's crazy.
The ice cream was very good. I had a lot of ice cream in Japan.
Now I can't read these questions and be serious, but I'm gonna try. Drew Ryder, Nike Premier or Legend 7 Pro? Also, how much better is the Legend 7 Elite in comparison to the Legend 7 Pro? Big fan of the podcast. Keep up the good work. Game face. I would probably say depends on what you want to pay. The Premier 2 is very good for the €100 you pay, but also, of course, I would take the Legend 7 Pro, especially because for me, the Legend 7 Pro is almost as good as the Legend 7 Elite. It basically just gives you a synthetic, like build quality wise, construction wise. Let me put it that way. It actually reminds me a lot of the Rebula, only with worse materials, because you also have a synthetic tongue piece. You have a very nice leather forefoot, and they basically give you everything you get in the Legend Elite just without the knit, and it's considerably cheaper. So for me, you ask how much better is the Legend Elite than the Pro, I would actually say it's better, but not enough to justify the price gap.
Which is fair. I lean more towards the Premier, just because one, I think it's an amazing looking boot. I love the classic Tiempo vibe that it has.
But the ones were better.
Yeah, but I like the tongue. I'm a fan of the tongue. Oh, you don't like the tongue? See, I'm a fan of the tongue, and I like the more pure touch that you get from the Premier.
Okay.
I just think it's a cleaner touch. It's not as good of a performer in any way at all.
Sure.
The Tiempo Legend 7 Pro is a better football boot.
I agree.
But I don't know. The experience and the feel and the look of the Premier is what I like.
And the tooling on the Premier for me is simply way too soft all the way through. It just feels too unstable and just too. It's comfortable, but you know it's nice and it's a good training boot for me. But I wouldn't wear it in matches. Put it that way. But it's good value for money. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What is better, X18.1 or X19.1? There's a very simple answer to that question, Josh, and that is
X19.1 is slightly better. I don't think it's like a huge. There's not like a giant gap.
Really?
But I definitely think. You think there is?
Oh, I think it's way, way better, simply because the upper feels a little thinner and just a lot softer.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least for me, I instantly felt at home in the 19.1, and I had to break the 18.1s in to make them, mold to my foot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like the 19.1.
I was going to say, if you have 18.1s right now, like I wouldn't rush to upgrade. But yeah, I definitely think the 19.1 is an improvement.
Yes, I agree. Let's leave it at that. It's better than the 18.1. Okay, Hazim Nikasman. Why does most professional players from the MLS and the USL Championship wear FG boots rather than AG? Since most of the pitches are AG, and I think you kind of covered that in one of your videos. So I just wanted to shamelessly plug it and let you talk about it.
Well, I don't think it's an issue of availability, if that's what you're implying.
Yes.
I don't. It's a great question. I think it just comes down to the fact that all these guys who are playing pro, AG stud patterns are a relatively new thing. So unless it's like put in front of their face saying, "Hey, here's an AG stud pattern that you can wear," I think they just wear FG boots. I kind of agree with you in saying that. Yeah, it's probably not the best idea, especially if your entire life depends on you being able to play and not get injured. I would probably value wearing an AG Pro or an AG specific stud pattern at that point. But yeah, they just don't for whatever reason. I don't know if they train on natural grass. I'm going to assume that most of them don't.
Yeah.
Because AG fields are just very prevalent in the US and I would say North America in general, probably even in Europe too.
But do you think it's because they simply don't know? I mean, they hear AG and they think, it's this old school pattern with 20, 30 studs on it that feels more like a turf shoe than the modern boots, which can actually also substitute for FG boots or can be used on firm pitches. Do you think it's because they don't know that AG boots in modern days can actually, they're more versatile than they used to be?
I definitely think that's a solid theory. And I think a lot of people get confused because understandably so, and it's exactly what the brands want you to think from a marketing perspective, that the pros are really into football boots just like the people watching YouTube videos about football boots are. And that's not entirely the case for, I would say, probably most professional players. They're just going to wear whatever they're paid to wear. They might get a custom variation of something that looks like what you can buy, but it's actually nothing like it.
Yeah.
Their focus, I think the vast majority of pros, their focus is to play football and not so much the boots.
And also, I guess, in the MLS, except for the super high-level players, the high-profile players, most of the guys will basically just have like maybe get boots from their team, or just get boots without being on a big contract. So they will just basically take whatever they're handed, and that's it. So I think I think it's because of a lack of information and maybe a lack of culture it's okay to wear AG boots because they're actually rather good. I do it without even blinking. If I
my understanding of a lot of these lower level kind of endorsement deals for professional athletes is that they get basically like a monthly allotment for free product.
Exactly.
So whether it's $5,000, $10,000 in product, they don't get paid any kind of money, but hey, pick whatever Nike boot you want and pick all these Nike sneakers and clothes, and we send it to you, and here's your budget for the month. So yeah, it's not a matter of like Nike has like these people hired to manage every single professional athlete that wears their products and making sure that they're wearing the right product. It's just they wear what they've worn their entire life, and the vast majority of them, that's FG boots.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's how it goes. So now MLS.
So if you know a professional player wearing firm ground boots on artificial grass, make sure you share this episode of the Boot Nerds podcast and leave the timestamp in the podcast for this question, and maybe we'll save somebody's knee or something.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah. So tell people to subscribe, whether they're in the MLS or not. Spread the word. That's where I'm getting at. So
we should sponsor an MLS team.
And we definitely should, with all the money we have. I can't say this. Jay Frare 5, whatever. Hey, JJ's, what is the worst leather on a football boot you have ever felt? Not the worst boot with leather, just leather feel on a boot. And we're talking high-end boots here. And I thought about it long and hard, and I basically arrived at the PUMA 117.1. Because that was really, really underwhelming.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a great pick.
Maybe also the first 11 Pro from Adidas.
The first 11 Pro.
Let me just get it. Keep talking.
Yeah, but that wasn't kangaroo leather. That was when they were trying to do the Taurus leather thing.
Well, it's not necessarily kangaroo leather. It just says leather.
Oh, it just says leather?
Yeah, where's leather?
What comes to mind is the first reef when they reintroduced the PUMA King. Remember the yellow ones? And even the PUMA King 2. More so the PUMA King 2, I would say, because it had so much stitching. It had barely any leather, and what was there was like covered in like a million stitches. That was not good, I would say. I also, like, it might sound bad to say, but I think some of the Nike TechCraft stuff was pretty unextraordinary. The pack they did that was black and silver with the like little pattern through some of the leather.
This guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that was also not the best. Not the best.
No, not incredible. No, but I was even thinking the black and silver TechCraft boots from Nike, like the Mercurial, that had the super hard synthetic liner over top of this like speed ribbed textured
that was
leather.
Awful.
Like it didn't even feel like leather. That's
okay. Listen, this is not even a debate. That was the worst leather on a football boot ever. At least the worst feeling leather upper on a boot ever. Period. There's no discussion here. Terrible.
Yeah.
The theory behind this is good. Let's slap some nice leather on this upper. But the problem is an upper is only as soft as its stiffest component. So instead of, as they did on the first Techcraft models, where they actually removed the top part of the synthetic itself and put the leather on top of the inner liner instead of the synthetic, it was nice because the leather was softer. It felt better. But then for the later Techcraft models, they slapped the leather on top of the synthetic, which sat on top of the liner. So it was just a thicker package that was ultimately stiffer and felt like crap.
Yeah.
French.
Another one that I'm thinking of was the leather Adidas glitch. I don't know if you've ever felt that.
No, but I hear it's not the best.
It's got like this almost reptile print kind of pressed into it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. It might as well be synthetic because it really doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah. It doesn't beat the Techcraft. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I'm sure there's like one really obvious one that we're missing, but who knows? We'll just leave it at that. I think that's a good answer. We named a couple.
Seriously, if it's worse than the Techcraft, I should be ashamed for not remembering because that was absolutely disgustingly bad.
That one was bad.
All right, I guess we have time for one more question, and that will be from Reason Pumphrey. Do you guys miss the days with the one-off top-end silos from the brands? For example, the Adidas Supernova and the 7406. Or do you prefer the way the brands are staying with the 3 to 4 silos with variation?
Oh, I mean, I guess he expressed his opinion there with the no variation comment. Right? And look, you can make the argument that back then you had a lot less variety and they were all just variations of leather boots, right? So
yeah.
The same argument applies. I'm not mad at what they're doing now. I think more variety for the consumer rather than less is always a good thing. I do kind of agree where it's like, yeah, it seems like so much is the same now. Like everything's a knitted upper, everything's mid-cut, everything's sock-like, everything's lightweight. But at the same time, it almost seems like that's kind of the logical thing to do at this point, given that the football boot industry is so driven by tech.
Yeah, and the Supernova. I'm just thinking, wasn't the Supernova like a takedown of the Mania?
I don't know if it was a takedown or a separate line. Because I think was there not a takedown of the Mania? Just a regular takedown? Because there was takedowns of the Accelerator. Because I had a pair.
Yeah,
right. I don't remember ever really seeing a takedown of the Mania.
The Supernova was like, it was this black gray boot that was basically a Mania, but with no Predator elements on.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. I just don't think they were like a separate silo, were they?
I don't really know. I'm too young. I was really little when that was a thing.
Fair enough. But anyway, the 7406 at least, that was pretty fun. And I kind of feel that's what PUMA are doing with the King here again. They make, it's not a one-off silo thing, but it's something where they bring something else to the table than their normal offering. And I like that. On the other hand, it just makes more sense to have something people know and where they can expect to get something on a regular basis. So, it takes time to build brand loyalty and have this brand identity and silo identity. So by having one-off silos, it's just harder to sell people on the idea unless it's a mercurial.
Yeah. No, but I'm glad the PUMA King is back. Because I feel like every time I mention like all-time great boots, like I say Copa Mundial, and then I always mention the Morelia. Because it's kind of like the Japanese variation of a Copa. And then you always get comments saying, oh, what about the PUMA King? Well, guys, the PUMA King hasn't been relevant in a very long time. And to be fair, they kind of like dug a hole and buried the PUMA King series with a pretty good streak of not very good PUMA King boots, right?
And this
So-
is the only problem with this, and I also say it in the I'm gonna say it in the Unisport video that drops very soon, is that it's maybe not special enough to really bring the King DNA to the young generation, but it's a fairly solid boot, and it's a good way to bring the King back.
Yeah. It's hard. I think it's very hard, short of like old school Predators, and I guess we saw a good example with the T90 Laser 1, if that even counts as an old boot. But there's this seemingly this demand for a lot of these like iconic classic football boots to come back.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, if they were actually brought back, the customers for those boots don't exist anymore just because they're too old.
Yeah, or
and
they've
probably
moved on.
don't play.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've moved on, right? Like it's a sport. Like age is a factor here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't appeal to the younger generation. So
Exactly.
I'm a little excited because it does look like power boots are possibly going to make a little bit of a comeback over the next couple of years,
Let's
but we'll
see.
see about that.
Let's see about that.
But in general, I think I feel like football boots have progressed the logical way. Like no one says, "Oh, you know what? This new iPhone, I really wish I had the original iPhone instead." You know?
Yeah, and this is what I think people should realize, that there's a reason those models aren't around anymore, because the brands have realized, okay, there's not a market for them, and this is all it comes down to. It's are they able to sell boots, yes or no? And if they deem they're not, well, then they don't release it.
Well, I think it's wrong to say that there's no market for them, but is it a big enough market? Is
Okay,
there
fair
enough
enough,
people that
yes,
are willing? Right?
yes.
That's the clarification that needs to be made.
But that
'Cause
for me
there's
means
no football boot you can name that somebody's going to say, "Oh, I would buy that if it came out." But if it's
Sure.
literally 3 people, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, for me that is no market. I mean, if there's not enough people, if there's not a big enough market to make it profitable, then for me there is no market for that boot at the moment. But I'm a weird guy. That's how it goes.
Yeah. But that's just the way the industry works, right? Every brand, you mentioned the new PUMA King is like their answer to the Nike Premier, and then Adidas has the Copa Gloro that they've kind of almost given up on to a certain extent. New Balance introduced the 442, which is a bit of a disaster. You could say it competes against the Copa line and the Tiempo as well, but that's what these brands do. They find whatever brand is successful in one chunk of the market, and then they try to take a piece of that market themselves.
Exactly.
Rather than let's come out with this brand new concept and try to like form our own piece of the market, because that's very difficult to do and very expensive from a marketing perspective. So I guess that's part of the reason why there is a little bit less variety, is because nobody wants to spend the money and take the risk on a completely new idea, and maybe it doesn't catch on, which has been done many times in the football boot industry. Puma V Construct, I'm looking at you. Nitro Charge, I'm looking at you. Right? It's proven to not work.
Yeah,
so brands don't do it anymore.
In a battlefield this intense, you just gotta play your safe cards, and there's not as much wiggle room anymore, because it's brutal out there, and so you gotta go with what you believe will actually be a success.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with those words. Before we screw this up, man, we've screwed it up so many times. With those words, I think it's time to close down the Q&A part of the episode, but also, in general, the episode itself. Now, it's been a little bit of a long episode, but if you have had any questions about the Rebulas or the PUMA Kings or the new Champions League football, or you want us to talk about the evolution of footballs, any question you might have, any comment, leave them in the comment section right down below. Don't forget, of course, that if you want the Rebula 3s, you can go buy them from unisportstore.com. What you should also do is go subscribe to Josh's channel by clicking the bubble over by his face. He makes awesome videos. You can also go and follow us at Unisport to see what we're up to. But most importantly, go hit that black bubble in the middle of the screen, the Boot Nerds podcast subscribe button, hit the bell notification button to see all our latest videos the second they drop. And finally, leave a like on the video so we know that you had a good time. And with those words, I'm JayMike, and I approve this message.
Yeah, if you're a human, make sure you like this video. Okay, see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.